Limits of the Flesh, Chapter 65, Fantasy Fiction by Azazyel. You know. Maybe I should actually bring Kuoh back home to Kuoh with me. I thought errantly as I sucked upon the titty milk of a maple tree dryad. Or in other words, I was drinking of the teats of a Canadian woman. Kuoh was an exceedingly slow and gentle woman I could already see being similar to Arcueid in how she liked to spend the majority of her time sleeping in comfort. But either way, once I took a good little nap and woke up with Artemis somehow moved to my side and snuggled up into my chest as Kuoh cradled us in her bosom, I knew I needed to get back to work with the wildlife Kuoh had already collected for me. And this creation was going to go beyond what I typically did with my creations in only giving them one, maybe two bloodline abilities or talents. I took the monstrous mutated animals and quickly euthanized them so there were no conflicting minds or soul remnants as I began fusing a dozen monsters together into another female form because I had little interest in a hulking male form being overly affectionate with me as its creator. But this creation I made was taller, and stronger, with long blonde hair to go atop her head. I invertedly gave her heterochromia eyes of crimson red and woodland green when I gave her the flesh of drag into her being. On her right shoulder and grown over it was a dragon's upper head and mouth that covered said shoulder, and it matched Drag's head, allowing her to boost and use Drag's penetrate. On her left shoulder was a goat's head with its terrible square eyes looking at all with its baleful eyes as the living goat could look around, and from its eyes, it could petrify people into stone with the DNA I copied from my Medusa. And for the kicker, her own eyes were filled with the Lucifer bloodline, so with her Sharingan divine abilities would be almost certainly nullified if it wasn't someone like Zeus or Hades coming across her. Now to just give her the Leviathan bloodline, so she can grow big enough to smack gods around regardless of their strength, and she will be perfect, I said cheerfully, and I could all but feel Artemis's gaze upon my back at this new creation that would be able to lead the monsters into the old afterlife of the Aztecs that were heavily cursed and thus unclaimed by any faction. Now what do I name you, I wonder? I pondered as I took in her form, and honestly, I made her according to the Monster Girl encyclopedia. But as Artemis came closer and she once again inspected the girl, I heard EI offer to just call this new one by the number in which she was created in order of the other creations I had, but I quickly cancelled that thought out as I refused to start naming my creations numbers. That way led to madness and me creating literal hordes of waifus that I couldn't even bother to remember their names, and I would lose something of myself in doing that. Thankfully, however, Artemis had a suggestion that could work. If she is to be a forest strider and huntress, then I offer the name of my handmaiden Atlanta. Artemis spoke, and I raised an eyebrow as I jump-started the chimera's soul into life, and I staggered in place at the strain on my own soul. Atlanta. All right, that will do perfectly. I said wryly, wondering if there was a hero reincarnation in Kuoh's brigade by that name who would be pissed as all hell at Artemis giving that name to someone else. Once Atlanta woke up, that wry smile became a permanent fixture on my face, as this creation of mine was the complete opposite of Kuoh in her being an energy-filled nutcase, who only imprinted on me by taking in my scent so she could find me again. Then she ran into the forest with her abilities being freely used to slaughter the nearby monsters to establish her territory, totally her words, but I had a strong feeling she was going to end up bringing me the dead people she mauled. With Kuoh and Atlanta built, and Kuoh herself infecting the entire forest with her spores that contained the Beelzebub bloodline, so she was getting stronger with each tree she infected. Artemis and I just settled down into a log cabin home that Kuoh created for us out of a massive tree that was wider than a highway, while EI and Arcueid kept track and educated Atlanta. So is this supposed to be the honeymoon we are supposed to share as betrothed? Artemis asked softly as she sat beside me on a padded rocking swing bed. I looked up from my book of monsters that could be found in the familiar forest and saw that she was looking at me with her eyes tinged with deep emotions I couldn't sort out. I closed my eyes and took a breath before I decided to take a leap of faith, literally, in pulling the goddess onto me as I swung my legs up under her so she was laying atop me as we swung on the indoor porch swing bed. Artemis silently laid with her head on my chest as I laid a hand on her back, and she shivered as the tiniest flames of Asmodeus's passion flames tickled her senses. Artemis, I won't force you to do anything. Are you beautiful and making me desire you? Yes, you certainly are, so if you don't want me to put you under myself, and rail you, please quit teasing me with ambiguous statements. I whispered, and I felt her arms that were lying across the bed slowly come up to lay atop my chest, and as her silver eyes met mine I saw she was wearing a wry smile before she softly responded. I assumed that you would have already pulled me into your bed and done such things with both our factions, blessing to our union. But you are being remarkably patient. Are you expecting me, one of the virgin goddesses, to make the first move then? She almost seemed to tease, and I couldn't help but snort at how she flushed slightly even at the thought of doing so. Welp, with that clear offer I couldn't help myself, and with a rustling of cloth Artemis inhaled sharply as I pulled up her dress, and my hands dug into her soft but firm backside as I pulled her in tight against my waist, and then I captured her mouth in a brief kiss before I pulled back slightly. If you are ready, then I am more than ready to fulfill my husbandly duties and maybe break you in a little, I whispered, with the passion flames of Asmodeus making her baby blue eyes roll up a little. Oh, if I was going to fuck her here and now, I was going to ruin her and make sure that even if whatever Aphrodite did wore off, she wouldn't be able to ever imagine going back to Greeks.